he takes over, allow me to read a bit of his bio, because bio is very long, but I'll read part of it just so we know the person we have here today. So Dr. Benkedi Asante is a renowned oil and gas engineer and chief executive officer of Ghana National Gas Company since 2017. Dr. Asante has more than 30 years global experience in the oil and gas industry. He is one of the few Black oil and gas engineers who have testified as expert pipeline engineer before the US Supreme Court. He has also provided expert witness testimonies on gas custody transfer disputes in South America. Dr. Asante is also a lecturer at the College of Engineering, Kwame Nkrumah Technical University of Science and Technology, and a former operations and technical director of Ghana's premier gas infrastructure project, which birthed Ghana Gas, a turbo processing plant, and allied gas infrastructure in the Western region. He was the mastermind of Ghana's first gas master plan in 2008 and a co-author of a book on natural gas and LNG sponsored by the US Department of Energy. The initial specification for the gas processing plant, offshore pipeline and onshore pipeline were provided by Dr. Asante and to the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation gas team. Dr. Asante has provided consulting engineering services, project management and technical support for various projects throughout the world in countries as UAE, Argentina, Australia, Bangladesh, Bolivia, Brazil, Canada, and a lot of them. The names are huge. I'll skip that and then come back to Dr. Asante holds a BSc in chemical engineering from Kenya University. Oh, good. Ghana, an MSc in chemical engineering from the University of Calgary, Canada. He also obtained a PhD in chemical engineering from Imperial College London, University of Calgary, where he later taught gas processing and pipeline engineering. He is a board certified professional engineer who has published 20 technical papers and made over 100 technical presentations within and outside North America on oil and gas infrastructure design operations. As CEO of Ghana Gas, Dr. Asante has a brave move to indigenize the Ghana gas processing plant operations, a move that changed the operatorship of Ghana's gas processing plant from Sanopec and empowered the local employees to operate the plant, saving the company huge money, and I believe not only the company, the country as well. He has also led expansion work in the gas infrastructure in the country. He was adjudged the best worker of the year for excellence at the global energy firm, Enron Corporation in 2001. He also was awarded the Energy Personality of the Year by Ghana Energy Awards scheme for 2 consecutive years while leading the Ghana National Gas Company currently to win the Converted Energy Company of the Year award. He has also been adjudged CEO of the Year twice in the sector within the last 3 years. Like bio itself is a book, but I had to read a bit of it. We are honored indeed to have Dr. Ben Asante here. It has been a struggle, and myself so glad to have him just about the impact of the gas and energy transition and all that. Please, if you're not speaking, which you're not, kindly mute yourself so that you don't distract. We want to have keen attention to what is going to happen today. Dr. Asante, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, yeah, thank you very much. And first of all, I must apologize for canceling out on you guys the last time. And I was determined certainly to make it today. So I'm really, really glad and privileged to be given that honor to address the Society of Petroleum Engineers. I think a member, I'm not sure whether I'm in good standing, but I think I am.
Doc, I'll bring you back.
In the Houston chapter or whatever they call it. I think the topic for presentation, I'm going to move on straight to share my screen with you guys. Let's see. All right. Yeah. The topic for presentation today is very apt. That is, how do we balance energy poverty in Africa as globally, and we are looking at a transition from fossil fuels to renewables. Okay. All right. I just don't put some more. So that really is the crux of it. How do we balance, our state of energy consumption, which it's very low by continental standards compared to others, as you will see, with this move towards carbon neutrality and certainly energy transition. So we intend to first take a good look at Ghana Gas, of course, the role that we play in all this. We look at the current sources of gas in Ghana, the local content provision, sustainability of energy, then some of the driving factors for gas commercialization. And we'll look at the way forward as well. So let me start with Ghana Gas. I'm sure some of you are very much aware of what the role of Ghana Gas is, but in case you're not, I would just emphasize that here in this slide. Ghana Gas was incorporated in July of 2011. So it's just about 11 years old, just about 11 years old. And the mandate of the company really was to gather, process, and transport and market gas and gas products. Vision simply is to be a trusted and reliable gas services company. The mission, looking at the vision, is to contribute to Ghana's economic development by providing an operating infrastructure for those things I mentioned about, which is the gathering, processing, and transportation in a safe, cost-effective, responsible, and reliable manner. So that really is Ghana Gas in a page. I think if you look at how Ghana Gas' role has affected increasingly our domestic supply compared to imports, that is what you see from 2019 to 2020. As a matter of fact, before 2015, I would say May of 2015, there really was no indigenous gas, okay? So no domestic supply of gas. So that blue one was actually zero. It was all red. Ghana Gas came in and progressively, and for the last 3 years, you see the increasing domestic supply that has been championed mostly by Ghana Gas and of course by GMPC, who also supplies the commodity as Ghana Gas delivers it. So the infrastructure of Ghana Gas really looks like this. You see the solid lines here, and whether it's blue or red or green, are all existing infrastructure. So you look there in the offshore, you can see 3 FPSOs. 2 of them have been manifold. That's the John Mills, Atta Mills. Yeah, the Atta Mills and the Kwame Nkrumah ones. That's Jubilee Field and the 10 fields. Those are the raw gas that actually come to Jubilee, the Jubilee processing plant. So with the raw gas here, we are looking at gas that is in the dense phase. It's almost in equilibrium with the liquid that it existed in the reservoir with. So some call it associated gas, and indeed this is associated with the oil in the same reservoir. And Ghana Gas's role is actually just twofold: to take this raw, or I would say wet gas as well, and strip off the liquid, that separate the liquids from the gas, and then take the bulk liquid and fractionate them into the various commercial fractions. That is what we do at the processing plant here. All right. And then the lean gas will then be transported to the Takoradi area, and then some also up mid-country to Prestia. Currently, we just have it going to Prestia and through a lateral to the Takwa area, Takodaman area. And we are planning, of course, to extend this intermediate lateral all the way to Kumasi to serve both power and non-power applications. All right, but to the west of the Jubilee field offshore again is the FPSO Ejekum Kufuor that is being operated by ENI and partners. Now, this is essentially raw gas, so you do not need any processing. But what you would need is really conditioning of the gas. And conditioning of gas essentially is either increasing the pressure, or I should say just changing the pressure or changing the temperature. That is the conditioning of the gas, as opposed to processing where you markedly affect the composition of the gas. So whilst Jubilee and 10 actually goes through processing, the ENI Sankofa field gas through the FPSO Ejekum Kufuor goes through conditioning at the Sanzule onshore receiving facility, where you have a battery of compressor stations, which essentially just increases the pressure of the gas for downward or downstream transport to Takoradi, and then some also to Tema. So this is how our system really is, and I've tried to describe to you how it operates. Now, between Takoradi and Tema, we also do have transport of any surplus gas. Typically, at the moment, I think we are doing something between 100 to 120 million standard cubic feet of gas, excess gas that is going to Tema, but it's being transported now through the West African gas pipeline, on which GMPC has contracted or reserved capacity for that transportation. So we have gas actually going, that's west gas going to Tema to complement what is coming from Nigeria. That serves, at the moment, it serves only the power generating units in the Tema enclave. Now, because of the imbalance between supply and demand that we foresee, we are looking at also bringing in LNG to make up for that imbalance I described. So you would see that the sources, the sources of gas now are going to be about fourfold. Jubilee 10, Sankofa, I would say fivefold, I should say. Jubilee 10, Sankofa, then we have imports from Nigeria and LNG. Okay, now, because this line is being operated by a third party, and also because this line actually links the two critical load centers of Takoradi and Tema, it makes sense to make sure that you have a parallel line, what we call a loop, that could provide, I would say, an outage protection service, in addition to actually taking some of the gas as well. So currently, I think GMPC has got a contract of about 60 million scraps for, I don't know, maybe 10 years. But it's nothing more like operating your own line and even also providing outage protection for each other. So each of these lines are capable of transporting the whole volume that may be required going down to Tema. But they will provide outage protection in case any one of them is out. We all recall what happened in August of 2013, when the West African gas pipeline was actually attacked by pirates, no less. And what happened was that the pipeline actually broke at the seams. It took around, I believe, the Lomi area. And it took about 10 months. and $500 million later before it was restored to operation. So it's for reasons like this that you certainly want to make sure that you have your own system, quite apart from the fact that you are operating it yourself. And it also provides outage protection, like I said. We also intend to close that pipeline loop by installing another pipeline coming from the Tema enclave all the way to Kumasi through Atiwa, the bauxite enclave. Now, this we are calling the Western Corridor Line or Western Corridor Lateral. And then we have, of course, sorry, this is the Eastern Corridor Lateral. And of course, we have the Western Corridor Lateral, which goes through the Hinahini bauxite enclave as well. Not just the bauxite enclave, but actually all the mineral enclaves in the Hinahini Dawo-Sasso area. So essentially, our pipeline system that is anticipated in the next couple of years will look like this. Now, we're also planning a second train of processing, raw gas. Initially, we are looking at just incremental gas that will be coming from the Jubilee and 10 field. We estimate that will be somewhere around 120 million scarps to 150. So in total, what will be coming from Jubilee and 10 will be somewhere between 250 to about 300 million scarps. And we are now at the initial stages, of feed review and ESIA studies for those pipelines. So again, this is our pipeline system, and it also shows you the sources of gas that will be coming to the system and of course being distributed around Ghana. I spent quite a bit of time here because I wanted to make sure that you got it. All right. I would just say the institutions that really govern, the industry, certainly Petroleum Commission, Energy Commission, the Standards Authority to make sure that products in terms of the gas itself and the gas derivatives, which will be the natural gas liquids, in our case, mostly condensates, LPGs, and of course, pentanes as well. Then you have the PURC, who really now is the economic regulator. They provide, of course, the tariffs, so the services provision and the cost that will be due to those who provide services, particularly Ghana Gas, in terms of transportation and processing. EPA certainly monitors the environmental impact of our operations. The ministry itself really is the policy arm as expected, and institutions such as GMPC also play a key role in terms of the gas supply itself in partnership with the IOCs, like Tallow and of course, ENI Sankofa. All right. So these are really the key institutions or players in the sector to date in Ghana. Our system, our local content participation, it's really rife. Not only are we 100% indigenized, we also make sure that we help with capacity building, particularly in the project affected communities. And we also help with a lot of infrastructure in terms of education and health and also sports. So we are at the forefront in terms of actually providing or meeting our corporate social responsibility. But the local content achievement by far has been indigenization of our operation. Before then, so this is where we have like all Ghanaians operating our infrastructure, right from the gas control room to the processing floor to the storage facilities, all of them are Ghanaians. And of course, the regulatory and metering facilities as well, where we meter and decrease the pressure of the gas. And it's a joy to watch how they work. And I think they do that very seriously. We are very, very proud of them for what they've done. And we do hope that other industries will follow suit. Instead of employing foreign hands to operate infrastructure such as this, you train your own people to be able to do the job. And I tell you, they have a lot more stake in that than any foreign partner that you may bring. That is my view. So that is indigenization. Now, let's look at greenhouse emissions and the distribution of it in the various sectors. You can see that the energy sector by far is the worst offender, and it's followed not very closely by agriculture and certainly industry and waste in that sea. But you look at the right side of the diagram and you see the carbon emissions by region. Again, these first world countries are the worst offenders. And so I'm talking about USA, Canada, and Western Europe, and followed closely, by Asia, and Africa and Central America are probably not as offensive when it comes to greenhouse emissions. All right. Now, what is energy sustainability? I think you can explain that by just looking at the word sustainability itself, even in its formal definition. And sustainable energy in this particular case being defined here, it's energy available to meet the needs of the present generation without compromising certainly the ability of the future generation to meet their own needs. And it's really divided into three areas of that of availability. Availability, that means when that particular commodity or even infrastructure that delivers it is needed, it will be available. Accessibility and affordability. Those are the three things that we want to look at. But let's start with availability. Availability, in this particular case, we are looking at generation, and in this case, electricity generation, and how thermal energy has progressively increased over the last couple of years. And the thermal generation, the fuel of choice, has increasingly been gas instead of liquid fuels such as LCO and diesel. But we still continue to use hydro also as a buffer. But I think this is what we are looking at the present stage. Let me just look at this. Accessibility as far as the continent is concerned. It's very poor, it's not very encouraging. That is electricity access, not very encouraging, particularly in some of the Western African countries and Central African countries and the Sub-Saharan countries. Ghana probably stands tall with over 80% access to electricity, and we do hope that the rest of Africa can catch up. Now, if you look at fossil fuel use, and particularly oil and gas use in the continent, it is less than about 5%. It's actually hovering around 5%, even though we contribute a little over 10% of the total production around the world. So you see that we have a lot of resources, but we do not use them, and you can attribute it to a lot of factors, some of which I will talk about later on. So that's Africa in a whole. And then you see the Ghana line increasing to a little over 80% in terms of electricity access. Affordability, cost. This is a comparison with some selected countries in Africa. And you see that Mali and Kenya, you see quite a significant cost as far as electricity is concerned. Ghana and Nigeria, yeah, pretty much at par. And but I think we certainly can all do better, particularly if we're able to access our indigenous resources and provide the needed infrastructure to be able to meet the needs of the net importers of both the fossil fuels and indeed of power. I think we can do a little better there. Now, I want to just quickly go through some of the factors that drive or that are driving global gas commercialization. Okay, and you see that some of these, of course, will apply to Ghana, if not all. Okay, let me just go through this. We need a cleaner energy source, and gas it's been seen as a cleaner source than its other fossil fuel family members of coal and, of course, oil. Now, I will demonstrate that to you in subsequent slides. So you see what we mean by gas is a cleaner fuel. Now, we also see that globally, energy consumption is also driving it. And energy consumption is increasing steadily from, about 60 years ago to the current consumption rates. So it's been a steady increase in energy usage, and our energy footprint everywhere in the world, including Africa, has increased tremendously. So that also is contributing to the commercialization of gas, which, like I mentioned earlier on, is one of the fuels that are used. In fact, now the preferred fuel, fossil fuel for power generation. And this is my point. Natural gas, see, getting a huge share in, and then coal and oil in terms of availability, now much smaller. Now, affordability is really key, and affordability does not necessarily occur if there is availability. I think you have to make sure that the infrastructure that you are using first to produce those fossil fuels, the oil and gas particularly, and also the infrastructure that will transport those fossil fuels once produced to the market areas and also the processing centers. Those are the key drivers for affordability, in addition to the cost of money. So you have to make sure that you are borrowing or you are setting out a fiscal regime that will be attractive. And if it's attractive, hopefully you can minimize the cost of money that will be used for building this infrastructure. All right, let's go on to other factors that is driving it. I think first though, I want to, when we say affordability and clean energy, this is an analysis that was done in the Takoradi enclave to see really what it costs to generate about 1,000 megawatts of power shown here, and that's about how much is being generated in the Takoradi Enclave, how much does it cost to use oil as opposed to natural gas? Now, without going into the details of the calculation, essentially, for 1,000 megawatts of power, you are going to require on a daily basis a calorific value of about 184,000 MMBTU per day. Now, if you look at the flow rate of gas that will be required to meet that calorific value, it's about 167. And at a gas price of 6, you can even do a sensitivity with 7, but the gas price currently, as we have it at $6, we are looking at a monthly bill of about $33.6 million per month to produce that 1,000 megawatts in the Takoradi Enclave if you are using gas. If you are using oil, however, you're going to require an equivalent of about 38,000, I would say 39,000 barrels per day to generate that 1,000 megawatts, or the equivalent of 184,000 MMBTU per day. At even a very generous delivered gas oil cost of 60 barrels, you're looking at a bill of $70 million per month. If you double this, you know what that means. And this is a very conservative assumption in terms of the oil price. So when we talk about gas being cost effective and providing affordability, this is what we mean, at least in the generation of power. Now, what about what we mean when we say gas is cleaner? Again, in the same enclave, which is the Takoradi Enclave, we are looking at, I mentioned about 168 million scfs of gas requirement and equivalent of about 39,000 barrels of oil. But this is a simple stoichiometric equation that tells you really how the greenhouse gas CO2 is emitted. So you have the general formula for a paraffinic hydrocarbon, whether it's oil or whether it's gas, that you are just combusting it. So it's a simple oxidation process, and you end up with water vapor and carbon dioxide. And that is the dreaded greenhouse gas. But for the purposes of generation of electricity, this is the key point. So you burn the hydrocarbon, whether it's oil or gas or coal, and you get CO2, water vapor, and energy. This energy initially is in the form of heat. And then you, of course, you use your generators and your turbines to convert it into electrical energy. But the equation, the stoichiometric equation, when you are using, say, gas, your N is just about 1. So you can see that you have a lot of carbon atoms coming out when you're using gas, mostly methane, and methane has got C1. Whilst for oil, it could be an average of about N equals to 8. So you're producing about 8 times that of carbon dioxide. That is what the stoichiometric equation tells us. And essentially, on a yearly basis in tonnage, you have CO2 emission of about, in the Takoradi Enclave, if you are generating 1,000 megawatts, you have about 1.3 million tons per year produced of CO2 if you are using gas. But look here, with oil though, it's about 8.3 million tons. See? So that is quite significant. So you are actually emitting 7 million tons more per year or less CO2 per year using gas instead of oil. That is what we mean by gas being a cleaner fuel. And this is a quantitative measure of that particular qualitative statements. All right. Other drivers, certainly availability and technology. I don't think it needs any expansion on those. And if you look at this chain as well, actually from the gas production to transportation, in this case, a gathering subsea pipeline, processing, and then power generation, and then transmission of the power to distribution, and of course, consumption of it. Okay. All these things are driving that. I think this is another side of the increasing that if you look at the red, yeah. If you look at the red plots there, they are the thermal generation, and you see how it has eclipsed in this 2014. It has eclipsed the use of hydro in Ghana, and I'm sure we can continue this graph to what we currently are today, 2022. And you see that we predominantly do have our generation now mostly by thermal. Now, the other drivers are also the regional and indeed the global impetus that is driving, the use of gas. The West African gas pipeline, for instance, made it possible to transport gas, which would otherwise fled in Nigeria, to neighboring countries of Benin, Togo, and of course, Ghana. Ghana being the anchor customer. Okay, but let's look even beyond that to what is proposed going forward. With what is happening in the world now, with global geopolitics particularly, there has been a proposal, and I sit on a committee. I don't think this is legible enough, but I sit on a committee that is really looking at getting gas around the Western Horn of Africa, across the Mediterranean to Europe. They are calling it Nigerian Morocco pipeline because it's starting from Nigeria and ending in Morocco, but it will cross the Mediterranean and feed Spain. This would be Africa's contribution to substituting gas supplies that could be either reduced or lost completely from Russia. And we have significant untapped reserves, as shown in the previous slides. This is a very long pipeline though. We are also looking at one that will go inland through Ghana. It's been proposed through Ghana to come to the same point. If nothing at all, it will provide a dual system of transport to Europe. So this is also being looked at, and we will look at bringing in gas from Nigeria, Ghana, when our supplies eclipse our demand, but also we're looking at those from Senegal and Mauritania area to supplement or feed the East. So I don't know how questions can be asked, but I'll be more than happy to get any questions either on this topic or anything in general from you. And so I think I would stop here. I will end here and just thank you for your attention. All right, thanks a lot.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Santi, for this wonderful presentation. I was indeed keenly following, and I believe we have had comments on our page, and I'll read some to you coming from our sister from Nigeria. Mm-hmm. It's an amazing presentation. It has everything: policy, infrastructure layout, industrial growth, security challenge, local content, emissions, and how He's taking energy sustainability. What an informative session. We have brains in Africa. Indeed, we are proud of you, and also want to thank you for having time with us. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the lecture, but we have Q&A session. If you have any question, please write it on the chat box. You can send it directly to me, or can make it openly known to everybody. But please don't hesitate to ask questions. If you want to ask also, you can raise up your hand using the same means of Zoom, and I'll call you. We do have about 15 minutes for this Q&A. And I also want to mention that, please,
hello,
I'll be glad. Yes, sir. Richmond.
Yeah, Doc. Yes, good afternoon. I hope you are doing well.
I'm doing good. So you mentioned your name, where you're from, and then you present, and then you say your question. Thank you.
My name is Richmond Akoli from Go Energy, Ghana.
Yes.
Yeah, I must say I've really enjoyed the lecture. It's been very informative. So I have two quick ones. Doc mentioned the issue of gas being cleaner, that is compared to oil. And I'm wondering if it has something to do with the location of the gas, where we are getting the reserve from, or do we assume all the types of gas are generally cleaner than oil, or there are some exceptions? That's my first one. My second one has to do with the plans to get pipelines from Nigeria to Morocco, that is on the seas and then inland. Because the challenges we've had with the West African gas pipeline has been security issues. Are we getting some guarantees that when we do these pipelines, they'll be secured, we won't have pirates and guerrillas and other people trying to attack the pipeline, giving us some commercial losses? Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks a lot. So, Robertson, would you go through a few questions so I take them in bulk, or I should just answer them as they come? What would you
yes,
suggest?
please. Let's do as it comes, sir.
Okay, good. Okay, so the two questions really, one has to do with whether gas is always cleaner than oil, irrespective of the source of gas. The answer is yes, an emphatic yes. Even the wettest and I would say gas of the most raw form cannot be or would not have the same atomic structure as oil in terms of its carbon count. And it's the carbon count, as I mentioned in the presentation, that really detects the CO2 emissions that come out. So even with the gas that it's saturated with oil, it has still got it's still less dense, and it has a much lower, I would say, composite carbon count than oil. So yes, gas will always, from that perspective, from its basic structure compared to oil, and certainly compared to coal, would be less offensive in terms of the CO2 after oxidation or combustion of it, right? The second one has to do with the security around the pipeline as envisaged by the team that is looking at using Africa's gas to actually supply Europe. No doubt, we always run the risk when we have pipelines in the sea, particularly if they are not buried below the sea floor. Now, some of these pipelines very close to the coastal areas usually are buried, but some are not. And if they are exposed, we run the risk, even if they are not pirates, but even significant sea traffic with an anchor drag. So the ship anchor can grab the pipeline at the seams if it's exposed. And sometimes you might even bury it, but just erosion can expose your pipeline. And that lends itself also to third-party damage. And so, yes, you're right. I think we have to not just look at possible pirate attacks, but certainly also even natural circumstances that exposes the pipe, including even sea traffic. All right. Okay, any other questions?
Great. Before I ask Ajebi and Alem to come in, I have a question in the chat box from Bismarck from SBM Offshore. Bismarck was my student, I remember you. So Bismarck is asking, how has the struggle been in trying to localize Ghana gas 100%? Is this possible in the upstream industry of Ghana after more than 10 years of production?
Okay. So yes, you usually have the initial growing pains. I think for us, we had the benefit of those who actually were operating the pipelines actually involved in the construction phase. So they were quite familiar with the infrastructure that they had to now operate. That helped. So with just a little push, really sensitizing them and initiating them, some in the control rooms and some on the process and of course storage facility floors, it wasn't that difficult. But I remember when I went down to Parliament to actually make that declaration that we actually wanted to operate the infrastructure ourselves. We had a bit of a rebuff because I think not too long ago, there had been some tragic incidents of 2 people dying at VRA. And so they cautioned us, are you sure these people can do it? Are you sure, Dr. Santi, you're not really inviting, some tragedy for us? After all, this is a very new system. Why don't you want them to get some foreigners to operate it for about 5 to 10 years before you hand over? And so, and the apprehension were understandable. But I think, we believe that these operators, from all sorts, some actually came from TOR, some from BOST, some from GMPC. They did a fantastic job and they continue to do that without incident. I might mention that they've been operating these facilities for millions of hours without lost time to injury. So, it just speaks that particular statistic itself speaks for itself, that not only are they capable, but they're also doing that safely. And that is really what is happening. All right. Was there another question by Mr. Bismarck? Besides, yeah, whether we can do that in the upstream as well. Yes, absolutely, we can. And I know if you go to GMPC, you would find that they've got a lot of attachments of GMPC personnel to the operators of these FPSOs. And I tell you, the day that GMPC would get its own FPSO to operate, the learning curve will not be significant because all they will have to do is just redeploy the people who have been trained on other FPSOs that they were attached to operate their own. And there you have another story of indigenization. I don't think that should be a problem at all. Yes, we can do it upstream as well. That's my point.
Thank you so much, Doc. Mr. Ajebi, could you please introduce yourself and your question? Be very brief if you can, please.
Okay. All right. Good evening. My name is David. David Alemzero. I'm speaking from China. I'm a PhD student of Jiangsu University. I want to thank Dr. Ben for the comprehensive overview of the gas sector in Ghana. It was really, really comprehensive and very insightful. My first question has to do with why do we still have to import LPNG? From different countries. That's liquefied petroleum gas. Why do you have to import it since we have enough gas from the oil fields at Jubilee, and as well as ENI, which has associated gas from their fields. And also, the other one has to do with, for now, Africa has a lot of gas. Nigeria has more gas, Egypt as well. So these 2 countries, they're the drivers of gas production in Africa. And so why is it that we don't think of trying to find a way to develop the gas within the continent for our own consumption? But we're talking of trying to extend it to Europe. Europe has already done well in renewables, so they have enough capacity to generate for themselves. So, but Africa, we do not have enough in terms of access to electricity and domestic consumption. And in fact, most African countries they import about 90% of their refined products. So they do not have the means to refine their own products, or they don't even trade among themselves in terms of gas, because gas is very important. That will drive the economic growth of our country and other countries, because it will ensure the uptake of the petroleum industry, and as well as other sectors like fertilizer, So I want to know how the country is doing to maximize the consumption of gas for economic growth within the next years to come. It should be brief, but I just wanted to kind of make some comment as well. But as I said, gas is a big fuel, of course, that it doesn't emit so much carbon dioxide as Doc has already stated on the model. And so it is considered a big fuel to energy transition. So consuming gas for us is no problem. So we need to find ways to make sure that we use it to the maximum so that we can develop or grow our economies. So once again, I just want to find out how Ghana is doing.
Thank you so much for your question.
To grow this. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
good. Yes, I think I got the gist of what our friend was saying. Even though I think he kind of mentioned LPG, and I wanted to say that he probably wanted to talk about why we are still importing LNG. I think probably that was what he meant by there. But even we can still look at the imports of those NGLs, particularly LPG, through agencies in Ghana, such as STOR, and also even private entities that actually import these NGLs. But let me talk about the LNG first. For me, I see the LNG for Ghana, and Ghana is seen, at least for the foreseeable future, to be a net importer of gas. I think we can switch that going forward, probably in the next maybe decade or so, and we probably would be a net exporter of gas. But to the extent that we see ourselves as a net importer of gas, LNG, in my view, would be one of the strategic sources of additional gas. Now, unlike pipeline gas, which comes and you have to use it, unless, of course, you have a well-constructed storage infrastructure, usually salt caverns and depleted reservoirs where you would have to pressurize gas and put it in there till the time when you use it. We call it, in Canada and in the US, we store gas for a time we call peak shaving, when you actually need more gas than you can supply, then you bring it out of storage. But in Ghana, what we have in terms of storage, which is storage, and it depletes very quickly in less than 6 hours. Even with a well-packed system, you cannot get more than 6 hours of service in terms of supply. So if you have a country that is a net importer of gas, LNG is strategic because it is the only source of gas that you can store, besides what I've described. You see, and so it helps you. Then it provides some reliability or an outage protection for you in terms of supply of the commodity. And that is if you need it and if you are a net importer of gas. Now, I think he also made a point about, and a very good one of that, hey, so what's happening with Africa? We have these reserves, yet we're going outside and doing all those. Absolutely. That is a problem. And I think if you just look at Africa continentally and you look at, and even what I mentioned was the production, not the reserves, the fact that we are doing about 10% and only consuming 5%, it means quite a bit of it is going outside. But within the continent, we still have countries which are energy poor. That means we lack the necessary infrastructure that will connect the net exporters to the net importers. Simplicity, that is really what it is. And I think there have been attempts, to try and see whether we can get this infrastructure in place. Certainly, you need the necessary funding. Your fiscal regime has to be conducive enough to attract that investment as well. So I think infrastructure is key in trying to bridge the gap between net exporters and net importers. Why Europe? Yes. Even if we're using as much of the reserves that we have, I still think that there will be a lot more supply than our demand. So we have to look for a place where they need the surplus fuel, and in this particular case, gas. You mentioned Egypt. Yes, we have a lot of countries that are rife in terms of oil and gas supply. And you did also rightly mention that, hey, maybe we shouldn't just be looking at gas for just power generation, but for non-power applications like fertilizer. Brilliant point. And I think, yes, besides fertilizer, I think we should go into other petrochemical industries as well, where gas can be used as a feedstock for those industries. So those are all very good points. And I think that they'll be anchored by the fact that we have to get the necessary infrastructure that will link the supply sources to the markets within Africa. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Doc. At the moment, our time is almost spent, but we do have our representative from GMPC board member in the name of Mr. Sonoata. I'll give him some time to give us a remark. We do also have our African regional director in the name of Ogogo Efiong from Nigeria. She also make a point and then we'll move on. But we have two questions to be our last remarks from Dr. Amorin from UMAT. Wonderful presentation, very insightful. Mr. Mbeya Avalum's question is, please, with the plans for expansion of infrastructure, may I know whether the project will be executed by only Ghanaians and how soon? And the last question from Mabel says, please, how has delay in payment of gas sold to IPPs and VRA, for example, affecting operation of Ghana Gas? So, Doc, you will pick these two questions and we will have some closing remarks. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So construction of new infrastructure in terms of the processing plant, number two, and then the pipeline, the key one actually between Takoradi and Tema. It will be done by partners outside of Ghana, but Ghanaians will have roles to play. For instance, you're going to be having Ghanaian companies, and I'm talking about the pipelines, for instance, which are easier to construct. The right of way and the ditching and the preparation of the ditches, those can be done locally. I don't think you need a foreign entity to do that. But, and to some extent, some aspects of even the welding and the bending of the pipeline along the right of way can also be done by local participants. But normally what we do is these are contracted to companies in the last couple of years, companies outside of Ghana, but our local content provision says that they should make sure that foreign local partners are involved in both the procurement and construction of infrastructure such as pipelines and indeed the processing plant as well. Now, the engineering side, I think we do a bit of those, but we work with, if, for instance, a joint venture partner, we work with our partners to make sure that we get what, we install what we have designed. Now, lack of payments to IPPs, or delay in payments. I think, yes, it's not the ideal thing, but I think we are working towards trying to make sure that we are responsive to the needs of IPPs. Look, not just IPPs, but all those who contribute to the provision of fuel, for instance, whether it's GMPs, whether it's Ghana gas, along the entire chain of power provision. Because if you don't, they run the risk of having some operational hiccups. And if there's really no liquidity in the system to make sure that we get the requisite infrastructure and parts to provide reliable and sustainable service, then we are cutting our noses to spite our face. So it's not the best, but I think it's not been bad either, particularly with the introduction of the cash waterfall mechanism. So I think that it can be improved, but it's getting much better. All right. Dr. Rivison.
Yes, sorry, I was muted. Yes, I've seen all your questions coming up, a lot of them though. But Dr. Sutton has promised to do a sequel to this lecture. He told me personally that he's going to come again for even a much more technical lecture. So just keep your questions and that will not take so long. I'm going to ask him now when that's going to be, but let's see that. And at this point,
what you can do, what you can do is to probably invite topics from your membership, whether they are interested in about details of some of the commercial issues associated with gas transactions, whether they are interested about pipeline transportation, whether they are interested, indeed, if they are interested also in liquid transportation and refining. I think we can be able to address them all, depending on the interest. We can do them bits and pieces of it.
Great.
I'm more than happy to do it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And for other listeners who joined late, this apparently this lecture is recorded, so you can watch it anytime. It's going to be live stream as well. So at this point, I'll ask Mrs. Ogogo Effiong from Nigeria. Actually, she is our African Regional Director of SPE. Please, ma'am, the floor is yours for remarks.
Thank you very much, my good friend Riverson. Sir, I just want to say this has been such an amazing event. How informative it has been, how interesting. Maybe I'm a bit biased because domestic gas is, is now it's a new role that I took on sometime last year. So domestic gas is something I'm quite passionate about, and the way it unlocks energy for us in Africa. So it's particularly exciting to me to see how Ghana's section has gotten to where they are at the moment, and it's just very, very encouraging and very heartening. Thank you very much. It was a very informative session. Anybody that missed it has missed out on quite some learnings. So I really want to appreciate you, sir, for your time and
thank you very much.
How you very patiently took us through the whole story, and I think you touched on every aspect of domestic gas that one will be interested in, whether it's from the technical side, the policies, the commercials, the security, safety, energy transition. It's fantastic. Thank you. I really appreciate it, and I totally enjoyed the event.
Yes.
Over to you, please, Riverson.
Okay, thank you so much, Oji. some few remarks from Dr. Yao Wache from UNER, excellent presentation and comment from Dr. Benasante. Thank you for the lecture. From Felix Asirifi, very informative presentation. Thank you, SPE Ghana session. Thank you, Dr. Benasante. Thank you, Dr. Besnopong. Thank you also for thanking us. But I'll ask our session chair for Ghana, in the name of Mrs. Engineer Celestina Kisi, to give us the closing remarks. Celestina, over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Dr. Riverson, for delivering this, hosting this event. And we really appreciate Dr. Benasante also for doing us the honor. It's taking us some time to get him. Before I go ahead to the vote of thanks, I would like to highlight our upcoming programs for the Ghana session. Next week, we have our student conference coming up. This will be hosted at the University of Ghana premises that will be on the 9th and 10th of June. So we're looking forward to all our students showing up for a very exciting program. We'll have the Petrol Bowl, student paper contest, the Case Cup challenge, all that goes in there. And we'll also have mentorship lectures that we will all appreciate. So don't miss it and make a date with us. That's on the 9th and 10th of June. Additionally, the Ghana session is celebrating 15 years of oil discovery in Ghana, lessons learned and future outlook. So as part of this, we are having a conference slated for the 1st of July. And we would like to take this opportunity to formally ask Dr. Benasante for his support for this conference. And we hope we'll hear favorably from him soon.
All right. I heard you.
Okay, sir.
No problem.
Thank you very much. So I'll go ahead to acknowledge the presence of everyone on this webinar. It's been a good time. We've had a very good webinar. I really appreciated the fact that the lower carbon contribution of gas has been directly highlighted, going back to down about 70% compared to the carbon emissions coming out from oil. And that is highly, highly remarkable. I believe that it provides some solace to the renewable energy activists that we can actually go down to gas in the interim, whilst we are also trying to transition to other sources of energy. So this event has been eventful indeed. And thank you for the suggestion that our members should come up with salient ideas or topics in this area that we can discuss in more detail. We have most of them on the call, and I'm sure this will be executed perfectly. I would like to thank our League of Volunteers, James, Dr. Riverson. We have Dr. Richard Amorin, Dr. Sakron. You have all played a major role in making this program a success. And our audience from both upstream and downstream sectors. I believe we have Leslie from the Energy Quest on this call with us. We also have the GTV at this event, and we appreciate your presence, and we ask that you watch out more for our programs on our LinkedIn page and make it a point to join us. Once again, thank you everyone. It was a wonderful discussion, and we hope to have you again. Thank you very much again, Dr. Benasante.
Thank you.
Okay, so on that note, I have no more words, unless Dr. Santo wants to say something briefly.
Just thank you for the opportunity. That's all.
Okay, we also want to thank you so much for coming in.
All right.
Yes, so Doc, we're going to bring you back to SPE Ghana session. Yeah. Now you're not more in Houston. We need you back.
All right.
SPE.
I'll take my leave now, if you permit me.
Yes, please.